If you're tired of the standard business and marketing fundamentals, frameworks, and funnels, you need a little mischief. Get ready to turn up the volume on the CEO Mischief Maker podcast, where you access conversations with seasoned business owners who have smashed through mindset barriers, innovated the standard boring business and marketing playbooks, and executed future-paced strategies with bleeding-edge tools and tactics to micro-fail their way into massive success and growth. We are Mindset Impact Strategic Catalysts helping innovative entrepreneurs focus. We are CEO Mischief Makers. Ready to make a little mischief? All right, CEO Mischief Makers, welcome back to the conversation that I'm having with Mark Schaefer. And I have to tell you, if you have not listened to our first conversation about mindset shifts, you need to stop this recording and go back and listen, because we are going to take this conversation further and deeper. So we were talking about mindset shifts, and you gave us 3 amazing examples of some major shifts and transformations that you made based on what others pointed out to you or what you recognized in others, and then they shared their experience with you and you chose to adopt a new mindset. Now let's take that into this whole idea of impact and innovation. So the easy question for most of us is, who are you impacting? So Mark, who are you impacting? Who are you here to serve in all the things that you do?
I don't know if this is gonna, this might sound weird, but the thing that always comes to mind, first of all, is my wife. Because whether it's work or something in my personal life, whether it's travel, do I make a decision to go someplace or not go someplace? I think about the impact on my wife. Do I start a new project? What's the impact on my wife? And that used to be my family, but my kids are grown now. But so I always think about that first. Maybe in a way it's because I probably went through some periods of my life where I didn't put that first. And, I was just, especially in the corporate world where your schedule isn't always your own all the time. But now, I can make my own decisions. I'm an entrepreneur. I have my own business. And so I always think about impact on the family, on me. Now, you and I are in this community that I started, and that's become a great joy. So I think about my community and my customers as well.
Yeah. So with that in mind, and I know this is the direction that you've gone, especially with community. How are you innovating community? And I can back up a little bit and kind of unveil a conversation we were having off mic when you mentioned that your life and your business life has been pretty much in a series of experiments. So that is exactly, to me, what innovation is. But community is not new. Community has been around since humans have been around. So how are you taking that concept of gathering of individuals that are of like mind and innovating it for this new society we're in?
I think even this MK was sort of a result of this continuous process of change and innovation. For the last 10 or 12 years, the trajectory of my career has been trying to figure out, how do we stand out above the noise? How do we rise? That's the name of the community. How do we rise above the noise? How can we be seen? How can we be heard? How can we be discovered? And isn't that really at the heart of what every business is trying to do, whether you're a big business or a small business? And it's getting increasingly difficult. So over the last 10 or 12 years, I've worked on a series of different projects and ideas, whether it's influence marketing or personal branding, or how content connects to all of this. And in the last episode, you were kind enough to mention a book I wrote called Marketing Rebellion. And even writing a book is a big experiment and a risk. When I wrote my first book, I didn't have a goal to write a book. I had no idea what I was doing. I did it just to see if I could do it. It was totally an experiment. So now I'm on book, number 8 or 9, Marketing Rebellion. And it's a wake-up call for marketing. And again, this is a big risk. I write this book and I think people are just going to hate it because I'm telling them your marketing just doesn't work anymore. You've got to, the world has the accumulated knowledge of the human race in the palm of their hand. Stop interrupting them with all this crap and double down on the things that they love. One of those ideas in the book, as you know, is belonging and community. And I predicted that this was going to become a major part of marketing in the future. Well, I had no idea how fast that might happen because 1 year later, the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
And if you remember how things began, companies went out and here we go with this silly, they all say the same thing. We are with you in these unprecedented times. And it was completely ridiculous because they couldn't get off the script.
Yeah.
They couldn't get off the script. And people started telling me, you're right. All these things that you predicted, they're coming true. And the companies that did the best in the pandemic were the ones that eventually rolled up their sleeves and got to work and got down into the community and helped, really helped.
Yeah.
So that in all these years of innovation and adjusting led me to this new book and this realization that we need marketing ideas. And I guess how innovation occurs for me is I see trends and I think them through. So I have a good track record of predicting what's going to be next. People call me a futurist. It's a title I've reluctantly adopted because I think something like that, it would be better to come from other people calling me that. But so many people have called me that I began to identify with that. And people often say, well, how do you know what's going to happen next? How do you innovate in that way? And for me, it's just thinking through what you know to be true and what are going to be the implications. Here's a little example of how I innovate. So I see this trend about remote working. And then I saw another statistic that people are predicting that of all the changes in the pandemic, this is the one that's going to really last. People are not going to go back to work. Many, many people are going to stay in this remote. Okay, if that's true, what does that mean? It means people are going to need support in a new way. They're going to need 24-hour childcare, 24-hour IT support, 24-hour medical services, 24-hour workout rooms. Wouldn't it make sense to live in a specialized community for remote workers and build support around them in this community? And about 2 years ago, I had a meeting with the economic development director of the state of Maine. They've got a problem there where they have all these paper mills have closed and they have all these little towns in the middle of the state that are dying. So they have I said, make them remote working villages and build in all these advantages and rewards to be there. Well, it just went over his head. Guess what? Guess what I saw in the newspaper a month ago? Wall Street Journal, big mega trend of our time, remote working villages.
So that is amazing. So I have to encapsulate this because our first conversation, we kind of grouped these ideas of mindset shifts into the topic of curiosity. And so you're curious and that opens you up to new ideas. Now you're taking, I think the core of innovation is that curiosity coupled with an understanding of experience and history. And you just put those two together and say, well, if this is true that happened, then with this new curiosity, then, hey, maybe this will happen. That's it really is.
It's a very interesting insight. A few years ago, I got to interview Walter Isaacson. Walter Isaacson has written books on geniuses. He wrote a book on, let's see, Einstein, Leonardo da Vinci, Steve Jobs, Benjamin Franklin. And so I got to interview him. I got to meet him. What a great joy that was. And I said, what makes a genius? What's the common thread of all these people? He said, I really think it's two things. He said, it's endless curiosity with an ability to detect patterns.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Connecting the dots. So that's exactly paraphrasing what you just said.
That's it.
And yeah, and so I think that's maybe a gift that I have, is that I am curious about, what is this trend? What does this really mean? And then I kind of connect the dots and think, okay, well, what's that going to mean? And it's really that simple. I mean, or maybe it's not.
Yeah, no, it is.
Maybe if it was simple, more people would be doing it. But for me, it seems simple that if you can just think through, be curious about something and read everything you can about it, and then think through what are the implications that, and you use a little bit of logic, and it leads you to where we're going to be next. A similar thing happened with this idea of community. So it's just like you said, community is not new.
Nope.
But in my new book, I detected 3 patterns, 3 megatrends coming together in a certain way. If you think it through, the solution has to be community.
Yeah.
Now, there are lots of different types of community, but businesses, they need something new. They need a way to connect with their customers in a more meaningful way. They need to, again, following my pattern of how do we stand out? How can we be heard? How can we be discovered? And no one is really looking at community through a brand marketing lens. Yeah. And it's this huge, huge opportunity. Now, I'll have one little bragging moment here. And the bragging moment was the day I wrote the last words of the book, McKinsey came out with a major research paper and said, community is the next big thing in marketing. And it's just like, mic drop, nailed it. This is the right book. This is the right book for the right time. Yeah. And it's unlike any book that's ever been written before. It's a totally new perspective. But again, it's just thinking through, if these trends are here and now, and we know it, what is that going to mean? What are the implications to me, to you, to my family, to the business world? And it leads you to these conclusions. Yeah.
And I have to agree 100% on this whole idea of patterns. It really, because humans are humans. We are humans. We are our DNA, the way we look at our world, nature, our nature hasn't changed. Survival, all those things, notoriety, community to stay safe, not be ostracized, all those things we are humans. And so those patterns are centuries old. They're not new. So if you can combine those two things, that curiosity and the patterns so beautifully, you will be thought of as a shaman, right? You will be thought of as a witch, or someone who is a futurist, and all these other words that we've put to this same concept. That whole idea of community and innovation, we're going to talk the next time. You just gave me an amazing idea for where we can go in our next conversation with strategy and tactics. Awesome. But with this whole community idea and with this innovation, you have impacted and you have drawn out others with that book, Belonging to the Brand, who are also building communities like this. And anything to say about that, and how people are already starting on this path and have already created amazing success with that whole idea of belonging to the brand and building a community?
Well, it's just the greatest feeling in the world as an author, because I thought I had it right. I thought I wrote a bold and beautiful book, but you just never know till it gets out in the world. I'm always waiting for that review that says, "You big dummy, you forgot this." And thankfully, that hasn't happened yet. And this is a book that's being just totally embraced and loved. It's changing lives. I was on a call this morning with someone from England who I featured in the book. People I featured in the book are becoming stars in their own right. People are contacting them, connecting them. They're saying, teach me, help me. He's starting to think about creating a whole business, a whole consulting practice around his success, and helping people find those curiosity and those patterns that can lead them to a meaningful community. It's also been amazing to be embraced by people who have already been successful with communities. Many people have said, I just was feeling disheartened. I was starting, there were some things that just weren't right in my community. And I read your book and everything became clear. I could see what was wrong. What were some of the foundational things I needed to change? So it's been just an amazing experience, just a pure joy to see these things happen. I got to interview Tom Peters. Were you able to listen to that interview? Okay.
I don't think, I wasn't. No, I wasn't. That was at the time I was traveling.
I interviewed Tom Peters in our community, and I talked to him 2 years ago. Tom Peters, of course, wrote In Search of Excellence, the best-selling business book in history, and he's written, I think, 20 other books since then. And I talked to him 2 years ago, and he said he was retiring. And now I'm talking to him 2 years later, and he just wrote a new book. And I said, dude, what's up? I thought you were retiring. And he said, well, I'm desperate to get my ideas into the world. Yeah. And he said, that's what really drives your success as an author or a speaker or someone who's, a thought leader in their profession. You got to be desperate to get your ideas out into the world. And that's how I felt about this book. It's just, I know this is right. I know this is where we need to go. And I'm just desperate for you to hear this. And, the people that hear it, they're taking action on it. I just got to get more people to hear it.
Okay, hold on. If your mindset was shifted, you were inspired to innovate, and you were spurred into action, don't just move on with your day. Focus, my friend, and take a few minutes to visit CEOmischiefmaker.com to learn more about the value that was shared with you today. Please act now and create some CEO mischief of your own.